$6 billion in government funds after losing $8 billion in the first quarter. Do you remember them asking this money for you? Did you see that? The two firms now have tapped more than $145 billion from Uncle Sam's unlimited credit line. They don't have to ask you for money anymore or ask your permission. They just do it. They just take your credit card and charge as much as they want. Did you ask for this? Are you for this? The third story is Greece. Whew, Greece. We're not only bailing ourselves out, Fannie and Freddie, but now we're trying to bail out Europe as well. The European Union, along with the IMF, is giving $1 trillion to Greece. $1 trillion. The U.S. contributes 17% of the IMF funds. So how much are we on the hook for? $54 billion. 54. That's more than the White House expects for the budgets of our Commerce Department, our Labor Department, our Interior, the Treasury. $48 billion. You got to be kidding me. That's all of these combined for this year. The original bailout was $787 billion. That was for us. Then it was speculated to be maybe $1.5 trillion. Then it was $3 trillion. The speculation now, nobody knows. But they think our bailouts of us could be upwards of $20 trillion. They're just charging it. You don't even know. What are the final answers here? Where are we headed? What are we doing? Because now we're doing this globally. What happened after we gave the money to Greece? This one really bothers me. The market crashed. And now I get up this morning and I read that credit default swaps are at a high. Well, most people don't even know what a credit default swap is. That's when they take all of the credit and bundle it together, and then they bet. It's like going to Vegas. They bet. You think is that gonna last? You think they're going to be able to pay that off, or is it going to default? You get $1 trillion in bailout. And the people betting against you, saying that you're going to default anyway, once you got the $1 trillion, the credit default swaps went up. Why? Because the market knows this isn't going to work. There's something wrong here. Why are we giving them billions of our dollars? The answer, I believe, is globalization and mass redistribution of wealth. It is the progressive mentality. And they are taking money off of the top. That's all that's happening. They just keep taking money off of the top. This is a progressive plan that has happened for a long, long time. This is not about Obama. This has been going on for a long time. You got to know the history of progressivism. I want you to go to glennbeck.com right now. Go to glennbeck.com. I've made the Insider Extreme free. Check out the preview of progressivism and the cancer of America's cancer. We have documentaries and history lessons that you won't find anywhere else. I'm trying to correct history as fast as I can. We do it on our Insider Extreme, and I've made it open and free for you right now. Go to glennbeck.com and just snoop around and look and see if you learn anything there. Back in a minute. Thanks to the European Union and the International Monetary Fund, Europe is getting a bailout close to $1 trillion, and now the markets are betting against the plan. I asked David Asman to come by. He is the host of America's Nightly Scoreboard on the Fox Business Network, and he understands all this, and better yet, he can explain it. Because I want to tell you my concerns and what I think is going on. Then tell me if I'm right or where I've got it wrong here. The credit default swaps, when I saw this, correct me if I'm wrong, credit default is, it's insurance, okay, bundled up everybody's debt, okay, like Greece, and now people are betting on whether it's going to default or not.
Right. The price credit default swaps go up as the thing that they're insuring goes down in value. That is, they're an insurance in case of a default. And because Greece moves ever closer to default, credit default swaps are moving up in price. But the problem is, can I just interject?
Yes.
The problem is if Greece does default, then these CDSs have to be paid off. And somebody, the person who issued the credit default swaps, is going to have to pay a lot of money, which is what happened with the subprime. Guess who's issuing the CDSs?
Make your head explode.
AIG. AIG, which we essentially nationalized because they couldn't pay off the credit default swaps on subprimes, are now partly as a government entity, U.S. government entity, issuing credit default swaps on Greece. So if Greece defaults, the U.S. government is going to be on the tab for even more than the $200 billion they are now for the credit default swaps on the subprime.
So how much is that going to add to this?
Who knows? Who knows how much? The problem with credit default swap markets, they're very secret. Government, right now, there are hearings on trying to open them up, making them trade through markets. Billionaire hedge funds, banks.
All right, so let me ask you this. So here's
by the way, that's what the banks are doing with your TARP money.
Right.
Are buying some of these CDS.
I know. So here's what I'm thinking. That this is a giant scam, and we all know it. But let me explain it a little bit and see if tell me where I'm wrong. We bail out. I'm using Goldman Sachs as an example. We bail out Goldman Sachs. Okay. We give them the money. Okay. So they get that bailout money. Then they take some of that money and they bet against themselves. They bet on default, right? They get to pay off twice.
Right. Oh, yeah. Well, 3 times actually, because remember, they're borrowing money from the Fed at 0% interest. So they get, and that could be the biggest money of all, because it's the Fed that's been pushing out all these dollars. So eventually that's going to have to be paid for. How much time do we have,
Aaron? How much time? 1 minute, real quick. Let me ask you this. The Fed is also buying euros.
That's right.
I wouldn't buy euros in a million years.
That's right.
It's collapsing.
It's the political class of one nation protecting the rear end of a political class in another nation. That's all it is. The people can be damned.
But what we're buying is, we're buying a beat-up, 1981 Yugo, right, with no engine. We're saying, oh, well, we'll take your euros. Here, have dollars.
And we're paying for it what you'd cost, what a Rolls Royce would cost.
And you got nothing left in the end. This doesn't sound like a good plan. We'll explain a little bit more on maybe what's happening here with David Asman next. Host of America's Nightly Scoreboard on the Fox Business Network. We're trying to figure some things out here, and credit default swaps went up in price, which means the people who have money, the Goldman Sachs of the world, are betting against Greece with our money.
Right.
David, I feel like people keep throwing money onto the table, and then the stock market and everything else rises, and then the big players, the people who really know, the Goldmans, etc., they just take all that money off the table. Things collapse. People relax. They put a little bit more money in. They go back into the market. We bail some more people out. They say everything's going to be fine. More money's there. They take it off. It collapses again. It's like they're raking the money off the table. They're shaking us for change.
Well, people were more careful on Wall Street when they had to pay a price for their mistakes.
Right.
If you don't pay a price for your mistake, you make even wilder bets than in normal times.
But I'm not talking about the regular. I think the regular person is being shaken for change.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, in these countries, and it's not just here, in these countries that are being affected now by the IMF austerity, what's the first thing that the IMF tells a country to do? Devalue the currency. They can't do that because they're tied into the euro, and raise tax rates. The average person on the street in Greece, I mean, I don't know, these riots are something else. That's caused by the communist unions, et cetera. But the average person on the street in Greece is going through a terrible time. They have to pay a value-added tax now of 21%. Shortly, it'll be 23% in order for them to get squeezed to pay off the banks that have Greek debt. I mean, they're being shaken down. The people on the street are being shaken down for the banks.
I've got about 20 seconds here. It's not just the banks, though. It's not the bank. It is this global government structure, and all of our governments and the Fed and everybody else involved. Is it not?
Right. Absolutely. Well, and they become more involved the more the government gets involved in finance.
Okay. Back in just a second. Thanks, David. Fantastic. Tomorrow, they're finally going to introduce that cap and trade bill. Yes, they're really going to do it. Perfect day to return to Crime Inc., the global connections. Gandhi said, use truth as your anvil, nonviolence as your hammer, and anything that doesn't stand to the test when is brought to the anvil of truth and hammered with nonviolence, reject it. We'll see you tomorrow. From New York, good night, America.